So, hello. This is my second stream tonight. And again, it's a technology stream. That is a green technology stream. And it's about turning carbon into rock. And once again, it's based on an article by Tim Smedley, who's been doing really great work in this area, I think, for Medium. And I'm going to share one of his articles in a moment. And the title of the article is called The Technology That Turns CO2 into Rock. Isn't that wonderful? Of course, if we can turn the CO2 and if we can pull the CO2 out of the air and then we can turn it into rock, then that's fantastic. Tim's article starts: Iceland may have uncovered the first truly safe method for carbon capture and storage. Currently, the established carbon capture technology is to extract carbon dioxide from the atmosphere, condense it, and pump it into underground chambers. This is the technique favored by the oil and gas industry because they can suck an oil or gas reservoir dry, pump CO2 back in, and claim they're doing their bit for climate change. The problem with this method, beyond the hypocrisy, is that the CO2 can leak back out. It is only ever an earthquake away from seeping to the surface and into the atmosphere again. Much like nuclear waste, it doesn't solve a problem. It simply passes the buck to future generations. Here's the Icelandic alternative. The CO2 reacts with the mineral rich rocks to turn into a solid instead. In the mainstream carbon capture and storage scenario outlined above, this geological process would take well over 100,000 years, during which time the unstable CO2 would likely have leaked out anyway. But researchers in Iceland have developed a method by which CO2 is dissolved in water before being injected into the island's mineral rich basaltic rocks. Here it turns into solid white calcite crystals in far less than 100,000 years. In fact, it takes just 2 years. This is not just theoretical or lab based research. It has been happening on industrial scale at Carb Fix, part of the Helishidi geothermal power plant near Reykjavik, Iceland, since 2014. Waste CO2 is captured from the power plant steam, is dissolved into large volumes of water and injected into the basalt below, between 400 meters and 800 meters deep. There, the basalt, which contains up to 25% of calcium, magnesium, and iron by weight, looks literally like a black sponge filled with air holes that the CO2 settles in and forms calcite, which is basically mineralized carbon, within just hundreds of days, not hundreds of thousands, of years. And there's a photo of the Helishidi geothermal power plant, site of the Carb Fix project. There's just not much to see in the photo, I'm afraid. Uh, okay, but anyway, Jurek Mater, who's associate professor in geoengineering at the University of Southampton, part of the original research group, tells me, quote, since 2016, CarbFix has upscaled the CO2 storage and the mineralization to industrial scale by injecting about 10,200 tons of CO2 per year into the basaltic subsurface storage. All the carbon in the atmosphere in plants and animals inside you and me originates from rocks and will eventually become rocks again. This is known as the carbon cycle. A 2014 paper in Science by the Institute of Earth Sciences, the University of Iceland, claims that humans have accelerated, that's a quote, humans have accelerated this cycle by mining and burning fossil fuel since the beginning of the Industrial Revolution, causing rising atmospheric carbon dioxide concentrations that are the main cause of global warming. One option for mitigating high levels of global warming is to capture CO2 and safely store it for thousands of years or longer in these subsurface rocks by accelerating the carbonate mineral formation in these rocks. It is possible to rebalance the global carbon cycle, providing a long term carbon storage solution. Iceland is unusually blessed with basalt. More than 90% of the highly volcanic island is made up of it, but basalt isn't exactly rare in the rest of the world either. It is one of the most common rock types on Earth, covering approximately 10% of the surface and most of the ocean floor. Sandra Snebjorn's daughter, a geologist working for CarbFix, I love the names they have in Iceland, told the BBC, quote, wherever there are basalt and water, this model would work. The storage capacity is such that, in theory, basalts could permanently hold the entire bulk of CO2 emissions derived from burning all fossil fuel on Earth. Unquote. So, why, given that the world has abundant basalt and an apocalyptic atmospheric CO2 problem, isn't the carb fix model happening elsewhere? Good question. Says Matter. Quote, the carb fix model is unique because it dissolves CO2 into water, wastewater from the geothermal power plant, during injection into the storage storage reservoir. This is an ideal situation, and it is not possible everywhere to co inject water with CO2 because of the lack of um, water availability. Unquote. However, quote again, it may be possible to inject pure CO2 into a deep uh, 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 basalt formation without the co-injection of water. Unquote. Uh, 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 um, uh, and preliminary results published from a pilot CO2 injection project into the Columbia River basalt in Washington State have done just that. So it's already feasible to inject the pure CO2 into such a formation because they did it here in Washington State. Okay. Another reason for the dominance of mainstream carbon storage in underground reservoirs is that, quote, the oil and gas industry is dominating the field. They have no knowledge and expertise with unconventional reservoirs such as basalts. CarbFix, jointly run by Reykjavik Energy, explains on its website that by capturing CO2 from variable sources and injecting it into suitable deep rock formations, the carbon released is returned back where it was extracted. This technology might help to mitigate climate change, as injecting CO2 at carefully selected geological sites with large potential storage capacity can be a long lasting and environmentally benign storage solution. Unquote. The leakage risk is zero. The problem it leaves for the next generation to solve, also zero. The priority must be to reduce the carbon emissions in the first place, but a truly stable form of carbon capture is surely a useful addition to the arsenal in the fight against global warming. That conclusion is, of course, the understatement of the year. If this can be developed to scale and carbon engineering can get the CO2 out of the air at scale, then the ability to inject the CO2 into basalt uh, would go a long way to solving our CO2 problem. When you couple it with some other technologies we've gone over here in the past, for example, the carbon engineering technologies they're using in Canada, okay, in British Columbia, to suck the CO2 out of the air, and you combine it with the capability to inject the CO2 directly into the basalt, uh, to use an ironic expression here, you're beginning to cook with some gas. Oops. I don't think I really meant that in exactly the way I said it. But anyway, it would certainly get us started towards ending this particular problem. And if we pursued the technologies of uh, regenerating our soils through through appropriate forms, okay, of agriculture and reforesting, and foresting in the first place, large scales across the world, and then we supplemented that further with growing hemp in as many areas of the world as we could, you can begin to see a rapid solution of the CO2 problem, maybe even over the next 10.5 years we have left. So it seems to me the two technologies that I've gone over here this evening are very important technologies to add to the arsenal of Green New Deal projects. And that, I think, is the point here that I wanted to emphasize very heavily. So, I'm going to do a little experimentation here now while I'm streaming. Oops. Didn't mean to pull that up exactly. just want to see what I can do with this. Oops. Didn't mean to pull that up either. In just that way. Not quite able to grab here what I'm trying to grab. So I'll have to experiment with this. I thought I could do this fairly easily. I can't do it fairly easily though, so I won't do it at all. I'll just fool around with this one. It seems easier. Anyway, so I'm going to take a look at your comments now. And we'll see what you have to say. Okay, can you hear me now? Just wondering if my sound is working without any feedbacks here. Any comments? Dale says sound is good. Great. I didn't expect it to be good. I expected there to be a feedback. In fact, when I go to this view, I'd been keeping the sound on mute for fear of the feedback. But if there's no feedback, then that's wonderful. It seems like there's a delay between the time that I make my comments and the time that you actually see it on the screen here. In fact, it may be a delay of something like 45 seconds or thereabouts. I'm actually streaming through the XSplit software, and that streams both to Facebook and to YouTube at the same time. So that's why my lips are not in sync with what you're hearing. Take a little bit of getting used to, but it seems to be a good way to get the simultaneous streams going. Okay, any questions? Okay, you may have noticed I'm experimenting with small streams now. I'm finding that that is much easier to do if I focus the streams on a single topic rather than going through multiple topics as I've been doing for so very long now. Anyway, tell me if you like the new format. I know it'll be easier to review once the stream is over. If you miss the stream, okay, it's a lot easier to catch up. Oh, there were actually two streams tonight. The first stream dealt with the blue energy technology, and the second stream has dealt with carbon sequestration technology, specifically taking CO2 out of the air, storing it, okay, in basalt, and transforming it within 2 years into rock. So it's turning CO2 into rock. They have a project, okay, in Iceland that, okay, is doing this now, and they've experimented with by turning carbon into rock, okay, in Washington State, here in the United States. So it's a technology that's really very, very promising for the Green New Deal. So over the last couple of days, we've gone through three new technologies that are very promising for the Green New Deal. The first is the wave technology that I discussed on Monday night. Okay, and the second is the blue wave technology I discussed in a separate stream tonight. And then now the turning carbon into rock technology. And you combine those with the regenerative agriculture technologies we talked about in the past, the reforestation technologies I also talked about in the past, and the use of hemp to cultivate extremely large areas on our planet to sequester carbon into the soil. Uh, I sort of punned by saying you're starting, when you use all these technologies together, you're starting to cook with gas when it comes to solving the climate problem. And so that was my contribution for tonight. Okay, now. Okay, I left the link to it in a post on my site that is just below this post. So you can get the link, okay, in that way. Okay, and in the YouTube description, when I post YouTube, okay, it's over there now. I haven't actually made it public yet, but when I post it, I'll include the link in the description. And Mark Zimmerman joined. Hey, Mark, how are you? Nice to see you. Okay, very good of you to come to my stream. Uh, we're we're commenting now. We're in the stage of commenting and discussing things. Okay, I'll give you the link here again in the comments. In fact, I'll put both links in the comments. Okay, take a look at those and you'll have the key links for both of the streams tonight. Any other questions about tonight's streams? They are, of course, part of a series of streams I've been doing on technologies that may be useful for the Green New Deal and that may help to save our bacon. Sorry about that. Uh, so, it's kind of eerie to watch myself say things 20 or 30 seconds later than I've actually said them. But that's something else. Okay, so anyway, I see that there are very few of you here, and I don't see new comments coming up. So I think I'm going to end this stream now. And I'll be back again tomorrow night, most probably at 9 o'clock. And I'll be talking about some other hot issues then, probably hotter than the issue of technology for a Green New Deal. Okay, but of course, uh, things are very, very hot now when it comes to the U.S. Killing fields. So I'll probably have some more to say about that. And maybe something on trade as well. And some other interesting topics. Maybe something on healthcare reform as well. So thank you for coming, and thank you for sharing. And please share, okay, as much as you can. Uh, and also don't forget to go to my Patreon site. I'll display that for you now. There it is. And please share, like, and subscribe. Applies more to YouTube than to Facebook, but the share and like certainly is Facebook. And my Patreon account is there. I know it's a little hard to read now, but I'll change the coloring on that when I get a chance now fairly soon. I'm still pretty sure you can see it. So, but I'll double check that. Yes, it can be seen. Hey, Rob, you're late. And Devora, you're late too. Hey, Rob, you're late. I did 2 short streams tonight. Oh, thank you, Dale, for posting it in the comments as well. Thanks a lot. I'll stay around and discuss things for a few more minutes if anybody wants to ask me anything. And while we're waiting, I'll take the Patreon link off the screen and go back to a more basic screen there. See? Hasn't quite happened yet. Now we'll be better able to time the delay. There I am. Okay, any other questions or comments? Okay, friends, so good night, and I'll see you tomorrow night. Oh, hi, Susan. Okay, I'm afraid that I'm just about to go. Okay, I've left some links, and they're also on my Facebook page. As you can see, I'm streaming now through my personal Facebook page and sharing to the Center for the Public Purpose and New Macro Media. Uh, anyway, good night, and I'll see you tomorrow night.